Without a doubt, the most famous hero in all of Greek mythology is the lion pelt-wearing, club-wielding demigod son of Zeus, who requires no introduction. Born with the name Alkaios in the city of Mycenae, Herakles was known for his strength, his bravery, but also for his wrath. His story has all the elements of Hellas's antique folklore: tragic downfalls, religious themes of redemption, heroic acts of valor, and a sprinkling of comedy. Besides his famous 12 labors, Herakles has many more adventures under his belt, both before and after his servitude under his evil cousin Eurystheus. The invincible hero who slew the Nemean lion also traveled to the four corners of the earth, fought giants, monsters, and rival armies, and married 3 times before ascending to his rightful place on Olympus. These exciting, earth-shaking adventures are the focus of today's episode. Welcome to the 5th installment of our Greek mythology series, narrating the life and times of Herakles. The story of Herakles begins before his birth, with the most ubiquitous inciting incident in Greek mythology: Zeus's infidelity. The thunder god had taken a liking to Alkmene, the queen of Mycenae, whose husband, Amphitryon, was away on a campaign against the Taphian kingdom. In order to get into the queen's bed, Zeus disguised himself as her husband and came down to her, claiming to have just returned from the campaign full of spoils. The day after their union, the real Amphitryon returned from the campaign, and Alkmene realized that Zeus was the one who had visited her. 9 months later, the boy who would later become Herakles was born with the name Alkaios, alongside a mortal twin brother by Amphitryon named Iphicles. This is a somewhat common trope in ancient Greek mythology, in which twins may have different fathers if they were conceived close enough to each other and one of the twins had a divine parent. Upon his son's birth, Zeus boasted that his son would become a great hero and king. As is to be expected, this infuriated his legal wife, Hera, who sent 2 massive snakes to kill the infant. Once the snakes arrived at the crib, Iphicles woke up and started crying. Alkmene rushed to the children's room, only to find the baby Alkaios strangling the villainous serpents. This would not be the last run-in the demigod had with the queen of the gods before he was potty-trained. It is said that Zeus instructed Hermes and Athena to help Herakles gain immortality by having him secretly nurse milk from Hera. The dastardly divine duo achieved this task by waiting until their stepmother was asleep before placing their half-brother on her breast to nurse. However, the infant was a little too hungry and bit Hera, who sprayed some milk into the sky, creating the homonymous Milky Way galaxy. As he grew up, the young Alkaios was raised as a princeling of Mycenae, learning both martial and scientific arts from the finest teachers in Hellas. Upon reaching maturity, he set off for his adventures, encountering a crossroads. 2 women, Vice and Virtue, stood on each road. Vice told him that if he chose her path, he would have an easy but quiet life. And Virtue told him that her road led to a harsh but glorious life. Herakles chose the path of virtue, and thus his adventures began. Alkaios began his adventurous exploits as soon as he became an adult. His first great deed was the defeat of the Lion of Kithairon, which he killed by using his spear. After this triumph, Herakles encountered the tax collectors of the polis of Orchomenos, who were terrorizing the city of Thebes with extortionate tribute. Alkaios organized a campaign to free Thebes from the terror of Orchomenos, a task he succeeded in. To thank him, the king of Thebes gave the demigod the hand of his daughter Megara in marriage. Although young, Herakles seemed to be living a happy life. But the wrath of Hera had not yet subsided, and the goddess resolved to end his happiness. A few years on, after Alkaios and Megara had many children together, the queen of the gods sent a bout of madness on Alkaios, causing him to murder his children and wife by shooting them with arrows. Upon awakening from his insanity, Alkaios realized what he had done and was utterly devastated. seeking redemption from his sacrilegious murder, he wandered Hellas seeking supplication until he came across the Oracle of Delphi. The voice of Apollo spoke through the oracle and told Alkaios that he must perform 12 labors in servitude of his evil cousin Eurystheus, the king of Tyrians and Mycenae. Eurystheus's tasks were bound to be grueling, for he and Alkaios had been rivals since childhood, and Hera had, in fact, sped up Eurystheus's birth so that he would succeed Alkaios in the line of succession for the Mycenaean throne. In an attempt to alleviate the queen goddess's hatred of Alkaios, Apollo had the young demigod renamed Herakles, meaning Hera's glory, hoping this would placate her. With a new name and 12 tasks ahead of him, Herakles went to Tyrians to begin his servitude. The evil Eurystheus was determined to make Herakles' life as difficult as possible with the 12 labors. He showed this with the first labor he gave to Herakles, to kill the Nemean lion. This lion had impenetrable skin and was immune to any sword or arrow strike. Herakles managed to overcome this difficulty by wrestling with the monstrous beast and strangling it to death. He then skinned the Nemean lion and turned its pelt into an armored cloak. The second labor was similarly difficult, slaying the Lernaean Hydra. This was a dragon with 9 heads, and whenever one head was cut off, 2 more would grow out of the stump. Herakles recruited his cousin, Euleos, to help him with this trial, and the two went together to the Hydra's lair. They set the cave on fire, flushing the monster out. The heroes sliced at the multi-headed beast, yet with each head they chopped off, 2 more grew out in its place. Hera even sent a crab to pester Herakles during the fight, which was crushed under the demigod's club. Herakles then realized the key to victory was fire, urging Euleos to burn the neck stumps of the heads he sliced off. This finally stopped the regrowth process. After killing the last and only immortal head, he took it and placed it under a rock. The venom of the Hydra was then collected and used by Herakles for the rest of his life. Hera, meanwhile, took the Hydra and the crab and turned them into the Hydra and Cancer constellations in the sky in their memory. The third labor was to capture the Ceryneian, or golden deer, which was larger than a bull and sacred to the goddess Artemis. The deer's size and speed made it a formidable prey, but Herakles set off to find it nonetheless. Upon arriving at Cerynea, Herakles found the deer in the plains outside the city. Immediately, the beast dashed off, forcing the mighty demigod to run after it. This game of cat and mouse continued for a year, until Herakles decided to use wit rather than speed to seize his prey. He set up a net trap near the river Ladon, and lured the deer to it, finally capturing it. At that moment, his half-sister, Artemis, appeared, and demanded an explanation for why he had entrapped an animal which was sacred to her. Herakles told her the details, and she allowed him to take the deer to Eurystheus. The fourth labor involved the Erymanthian boar, a massive wild pig that roamed the wilds of Hellas, which Eurystheus demanded be caught alive. Herakles found the boar and chased it around Greece for a long time. Finally, he injured the boar by unknown means, chained it, and brought it to Eurystheus. The evil cousin, who was absolutely terrified by the boar, hid in a jar before asking Herakles to take the vicious tusked creature away from his palace. The fifth task was one of time and menial labor. The king of Elis, Augean, had a massive stable of 3,000 horses that had never been cleaned of manure. Herakles was ordered to clean generations' worth of fecal buildup in a single day. As soon as the hero arrived at Elis, he realized the monumental task in front of him. But soon, a plan was devised in his mind. He went to the nearby rivers, Alkaios and Peneus, and dug 2 channels to divert the water. He then unleashed the water on the stables, and by sundown, the horses returned to squeaky clean beds. The 6th labor was to kill the Stymphalian birds, a group of metallic avians with bronze beaks and steel feathers that terrorized the Greek region of Stymphalia. Herakles went to the region and encountered the steel birds flying above his head in a massive flock. As he pondered what to do, his half-sister Athena appeared with a metallic rattle. The goddess of wisdom gave this tool to Herakles, who began to strike it. The birds were shocked by the echoes of the rattle on their own metal bodies and broke into disarray. Herakles chased them away and then shot them all down with his arrows. The seventh heroic deed required Herakles to go to Crete. There, a massive bull sent by Poseidon was wreaking havoc on the lands of King Minos. Minos had promised to sacrifice an animal Poseidon sent, but the beauty of the Cretan bull caused him to relent. This enraged Poseidon, who drove the bull mad. Herakles chased the bull and caught it, bringing it to Eurystheus. The Tyrrhenian king released the bull to be killed by another hero in our series. The eighth task was to go to Thrace and capture a group of human-eating, fire-breathing mares under the care of the local king Diomedes. Diomedes was a mad tyrant who fed his guests to his horses, but Herakles avoided this obstacle by simply feeding Diomedes to his mares. He then took the man-eating ponies back to Tiryns. The ninth deed was to go to Scythia, the land of the Amazons, and take the belt of their queen, Hippolyta. These warrior women were feared by most men, so Herakles only set forth after organizing an expedition with other Greek heroes to be able to face any Amazonian threats. Initially, Hippolyta was impressed with the demigod hero and gave him the belt without trouble. However, Hera intervened by disguising herself as an Amazon and spreading rumors that Hippolyta was being kidnapped by Herakles. This sparked a large battle, and Herakles defeated both Hippolyta and her right-hand woman, Aela. Taking the belt, he returned to his evil cousin, who was becoming increasingly annoyed by the demigod's mounting successes. The 10th labor required going to the hot deserts of Libya and capturing the cow herds of the giant Geryon, a monster with 3 chests containing 3 hearts. Herakles began his long journey into the Badlands, quickly becoming thirsty. Tired and frustrated by the heat, he shot an arrow at the god Helios, who was driving his sun chariot in the sky. Impressed by the demigod's audacity, Helios pointed him to the cow herds, which were guarded by the warrior Eurytion and the 2-headed dog Orthros. Herakles quickly dispatched both of them before shooting Geryon to death with a masterful shot, which pierced through all 3 of the giant's hearts. He took the herd and brought it to Tiryns, by now a massive farm of monstrous beings. On the way back, he defeated 2 giant sons of Poseidon known as Albion and Bergion. After doing so, he prayed, kneeling to his father Zeus, who then photographed his praying son in a constellation in the sky. The 11th task was to take the golden apples of the Hesperides, the daughters of the Titan Atlas, who lived on the far west of the world, where the sun set. Herakles had to once more pass through Libya, inventing Greek wrestling on the way by defeating the giant Antaeus in a grappling match. He then continued his trek to the garden, where the Hesperides lived. Guarding the tree was a giant dragon known as Ladon. The dragon was immortal, and Herakles could not kill him with traditional means. Thus, he climbed the nearby mountain, where Atlas was holding the sky, as punishment for opposing the gods in the Titanomachy. Atlas agreed to help Herakles if he held the sky, while he went to the garden to deal with the dragon. Herakles accepted, managing to hold the sky with impressive endurance. Atlas soon returned, and tried to trick Herakles into letting him go, by saying that he could bring the apples to Eurystheus himself. Realizing that Atlas was intending to leave Herakles here to shoulder the burden of the heavens for eternity, the demigod pretended to agree, asking only that Atlas help him adjust the sky on his shoulders. As Atlas once more took his place under the sky to do this, Herakles slipped out and made his escape. With the apples in hand, he returned to Greece. The final labor involved going to Hades and capturing the 3-headed guard dog of the underworld, Cerberus. Herakles descended into the underworld and convinced his uncle, Hades, to allow him to capture the dog, briefly. He then went up to Kerberos and wrestled him to submission. After bringing him to a terrified Eurystheus, Herakles was finally redeemed from his sins. Now free from slavery to Eurystheus, Herakles could roam the world and rebuild his life. His travels were naturally filled with adventures. One of these involved him falling in love with Princess Iole of Achalia, and having to kill her father and brothers to marry her. The only one of the princess's brothers who approved of this union was Iphitos, who befriended Herakles. But Hera, yet again, sent a bout of madness to Herakles, causing him to kill Iphitos. Yet again, Herakles had to purify himself by becoming a slave to Queen Omphale of Lydia, marrying her after his liberation. After this event, Herakles is said to have travelled throughout the Mediterranean and founded various cities or spawned new nations, such as the Gauls and the Scythians, the latter of which descend from the children of a mighty demigod and a serpent woman. In these journeys, many small adventures unfolded, such as Herakles going to the Caucasus and freeing Prometheus, who had been chained and had his entrails eaten by Zeus's eagle. Another such story involved sacking the city of Troy himself before the famous Trojan War, and then giving the kingdom to the famous King Priam. In this story, a dragon sent by Poseidon was rampaging through the city, and the king of Troy, Laomedon, hoped to appease it by sacrificing his daughter Hesione to the beast. Herakles arrived and slew the dragon, in exchange for a stable of horses given to Laomedon by Zeus, but Laomedon refused to return the horses, leading Herakles to sack the city. Herakles also briefly participated in the Argonautic expedition, the sea journey led by Jason in search of the Golden Fleece. Herakles' most formidable feat came during the Gigantomachy, when Gaia, angry at the defeat of the Titans and Typhon by the Olympians, merged with Tartarus and produced the snake-footed giants to oppose them. Herakles joined the Olympians in this battle and defeated two of these monsters. One was the giant Alkaios, who was immortal within his unknown homeland. Herakles at first fought Alkaios within his home turf with bow and arrow without success, then dragged him out of his homeland and strangled him. Porphyrion tried to abduct Herakles' stepmother, Hera, but Herakles joined with his father Zeus and killed the villainous giant. There are many more adventures Herakles took part in, too many to discuss in one video. However, they all ultimately converge on the story of his death. After many adventures, Herakles settled down and married the Caledonian princess Deianira, after wrestling the river spirit Alkaios for the right to marry her. One day, the couple were trying to cross a river, and a centaur named Nisos offered to help Deianira cross. Deianira mounted Nisos and crossed the river, but Nisos instantly began to run in an attempt to abduct her. Herakles slew the centaur with an arrow, but before he died, Nisos counseled Deianira to take his blood and use it to prevent Herakles from cheating on her. Deianira was, in fact, worried that Herakles was cheating on her, and thus bathed the hero's clothes in Nisos' blood. She gave these clothes to Herakles, who immediately began to writhe in pain. It was a trap. The blood was poisoned with the blood of the Lernaean Hydra. Herakles screamed in pain, but the clothes were stuck to his skin and he could not remove them. The only solution was for him to die. Filled with immense pain, Herakles set up a funeral pyre that was used to burn the dead in ancient Greece. He begged his friends to help him light it, but only his ally Philoctetes had the bravery and mercy to do so. The fire was lit, and Herakles' mortal flesh began to burn away. Death seemed to come for Herakles, but Zeus had other plans. He raised his son to the heavens and then into Olympus, where, using ambrosia and nectar, he made him fully divine. Herakles reconciled with his stepmother, Hera, and married the goddess of youth, Hebe. He then took his place as the god of strength and patron of the gymnasium in Olympus. Philoctetes took Herakles' weapons and used them in his adventures to honor his friend. As for Herakles' many children with his wives, they set up many dynasties from which kings like Alexander the Great claimed descent. The story of Herakles was long and full of sorrow, yet it was also a tale of adventure, of redemption, and of overcoming adversity. Herakles' strength and courage are known to many today, as are his wit and strategic mindset in conducting many of his labors. Herakles was heroic because of and despite his flaws, his rage and his hubris, and for daring to come to terms with his sins through torturous atonement. For millennia, and to this day, Herakles' name and image have inspired shock and awe, from his portrayal as a protector of the Buddha in Gandhara to his status as an ancestor of the Batavian tribes in Holland. These uses of Herakles, in such different contexts and for such different purposes, are much like Herakles' full and diverse life. This diversity, alongside the tremendousness of his adventures, is what makes Herakles and the myths surrounding him so seminal for us today. More videos on the heroes of Greek mythology are on the way, so make sure you're subscribed and have pressed the bell button to see them. Please consider liking, commenting, and sharing. It helps immensely. Our videos would be impossible without our kind patrons and YouTube channel members, whose ranks you can join via the links in the description to know our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our Discord, and much more. This is the Wizards and Warriors channel, and we'll catch you on the next one.